What's up, everyone? Eric Stanio here from Team Stanio Live. I'm really excited to do this live stream tonight. We're going to talk everyone's favorite topic, economics. I got numbers, I've got charts, I've got stats, fresh off of the Keller Williams Mega Agent Camp 2023 in Austin, Texas, from Gary Keller, the amazing Gary Keller's keynote speech. And we're going to walk through what's going on in the economy. We're going to talk about GDP. We're going to talk about median sales prices. We're going to talk about, is a recession likely or probable? So if you guys saw the thumbnail on this video, there's a chart. We're going to dig into that. That's showing that we are at high likelihood of a recession coming. But what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of home prices? What does that mean in terms of inventory? What does that mean in terms of interest rates? And what does it mean in terms of you if you're thinking of buying or selling a house or even renting? So I'm excited. I don't know. I like to geek out a little bit on economics. My economics college professor, one of them was pretty crazy and the other one was medium crazy. So I always liked my economics professors. I thought they were great. And I think economics really matters. As always, if you're watching, be sure to drop in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Love having you guys here on the channel. This is one of my favorite things to do of the week. I don't know. This is really fun. I enjoy interacting with you. And this is your chance to ask a question about Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, real estate, anything you want to drop in. But as always, be sure to drop in the chat, and I'll try to get to all of those comments. Those of you who are watching, hope you're having a great week. I'm pretty worn out. We had a good week. It was the first week back to school for us. Now we actually homeschool, but we do a classical school 2-day a week drop off for our kids. We have 5 kids. We have a lot of kids, ages 13, almost 13, I guess 12, technically 12 down to 3. And 4 of them are in school now. My one daughter, I have 4 boys and 1 daughter. My one daughter just started kindergarten. So it was a big week getting them kind of off the summer schedule, getting them back into the routine. And our school moved from about 5 minutes away to like 30 minutes away because the school was growing and needed more space. But you guys are probably going back to school too. Hope you're having a great week. Today, the other thing that was happening for me today is my in-laws are moving. My in-laws are moving to Florida, and we helped them sell their house, which is great. They're under contract now, but we're also helping them kind of clean out their house because they're moving to a place that's already furnished. And so today I was with my parents and some friends in a trailer in the 90-degree heat, moving dining room hutches that were probably much heavier than I should be lifting with my back. And we were moving bedroom furniture and all that fun stuff. So hope you had a good day. So I've been thinking about where we're at. We're going to jump into this again. Like I said, say hi in the chat. Would love to let you guys know where you're coming from and ask your questions, but I'm going to jump right in to some of this what's going on here economically. So this info is from Mega Agent Camp and 2023, like I mentioned. Oops, let's get over here. Market update 2023, the U.S. economy. So we're going to get right into it. And I showed this chart on the thumbnail. We'll go back to those previous charts in just a second. And this is really where we're going to talk a lot about tonight in terms of where things are and is a recession coming and what does that mean for you guys. And I was thinking about this week and where this chart, because basically what this chart is saying is like, it's probable. If you look back at these other times when this chart was showing probability of a recession and when the recessions came, it is probable. It is quite probable that a recession is coming. And I was kind of thinking about that personally. And I feel like the economy right now is kind of like when I was 6 years old, we lived in a rental house. When I lived in Michigan, I was 6. I was the youngest of 3 brothers. I had a 10-year-old brother. I had a 12-year-old brother. My parents were gone for the night. And I can't remember if it was like a date night for them or a church event or something like that. And we were just kind of rough housing, wrestling around. And we knocked the couch that tipped the lamp that broke the lamp. Not like completely shattered, fell apart, but it was like, oh, like that thing cracked, a piece fell out where we could kind of like put it back together. It was one of those kind of like ceramic plaster lamps maybe. And so we kind of like put it back together and like turned it so it was like kind of facing the broken part was facing the wall. And and then we just kind of lived for a while in this idea of like, are our parents going to find out, and are we going to get in trouble? And that's kind of what I feel like the economy is like right now, where it's like, this chart that we're going to get into is showing the recession probability is high. We dumped like billions of dollars into the economy. Things are like just kind of weird. Everyone kind of feels it, and you're like, are our parents going to find out like what's going on here? And is something bad going to happen? Are we going to feel the consequences of our actions? That's where I kind of feel like we're at with economy. So that's my story. Let's get into these slides real quick and jump right in. And some of these I'm going to cruise through, but I just think it's helpful for you if you are thinking of buying or selling a house, to just have an idea, have some context of what's going on in the economy, and what that could mean for you buying or selling a house. So first, GDP. Here's where we're at, and you're going to see some different mile markers here. 09, there's a big recession there. 2020, GDP went way down. Obviously, there was COVID. Now, where we're at projected for 2023, 2021 bounced back in a big way because you had all this money back into the economy after COVID. 2022 is kind of average to where we were in the teens of the 2020s, and this year the GDP is kind of projected to not be so hot. Looking at a 1% change year over year. Quarterly, I'm not going to dig into this too far, but there's a quarterly. So this chart I want to spend a little time on because this is showing recession probability. The yellow line is showing the New York Federal Reserve recession probability. The source is the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The yield curve is a leading indicator. So this is, I don't know how these smart guys came up with this curve, but the gray section on this chart, so these gray bars are all the different times we've had recessions going back to 1960. So you had right around 1970, 74, you had the high inflation in the late 70s. So you had a recession in like around 1980 and 82. Another short one in 1990. 2001, kind of right after 9/11 there. 2008, after that's the Great Recession, where we had the economic crisis with what happened with housing. You had a little one with COVID, and now we've got this big spike here. And so you can see in all of these different time periods where there was a recession in the U.S., you had a spike of this New York Federal Reserve recession probability curve. And so when I saw this chart, when this chart came out this week from Gary Keller, I was like, whoa, okay, that's high. That is a high probability that something's going to happen here. Now, I think we need to put it into context, and I'll try to do that the rest of the night, into looking at what else that means in terms of housing. But it seems like a recession would be probable here, either potentially late 2023, early 2024. So we'll see what happens. Let's continue on in our charts. Who out there likes charts? Let me know. Give it a thumbs up if you like charts. Consumer sentiment has been falling since 2018. It actually hit its low point in June 2022, and it's actually climbed a little bit. So interesting thing on consumer sentiment. Unemployment has been falling since around 2009, hit down all the way down about 3.7, spiked with COVID up to 8.1. So you had more unemployment, has come back down since. So unemployment is actually quite low, which is interesting, I would say. Unemployment is low. Here's the monthly. So it's giving them kind of the same data here. This chart stood out to me as well. This chart is showing unemployment from a job opening standpoint. And so the yellow line is showing job openings in millions, and the green is the unemployed people in millions. And so you had this giant spike in May of 2020 where you had all these people unemployed because obviously COVID, you couldn't stay work. But that has dropped down. So now you've got around 6 million unemployed people, but you actually have 9.58 million job openings. So again, I'm not a professional economist, but this seems odd to me that we actually have more jobs than unemployed people. So you guys help me figure that one out. What's going on? Do we have people that are unqualified for these jobs? Is that what's going on? Do we have people who are wanting to just stay home and work? Do we have people who are being incentivized maybe to stay home instead of go to work? But something seems a little funny to me on that, because it's flipped. If you go back to these different recession periods, the amount of unemployed people has always been more than the amount of jobs. And that has now switched. And so something weird in the economy is going on where you have more jobs than people willing to fill those jobs. I think that's an important piece, something we haven't seen at all. Well, I guess we saw it at the end of 18, 19, 20, and then it kind of flipped during COVID. But this is a very interesting curve to me. Okay, inflation. Who's feeling inflation out there? I am. What's your guys' grocery bill right now? I was talking to my kids about groceries, and they were actually, we try to have a family meeting every Sunday. And this week, part of my family meeting to my kids was saying, we had talked about our grocery bill in our last meeting, and they know how much it is. It's like, okay, family of 7, it's a lot, probably like $300 to $400 a week, something like that, somewhere in that range. So my son did the annual math. He's like, whoa, that's a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, I know. I got to go sell more houses just to pay these groceries. And but today we were talking about how do we not waste food? And I was talking about putting away groceries and said maybe we shouldn't open the new chips until the old chips are eaten. And that is a life lesson for all of you out there. Eat the old chips before you open the new bag of chips, and bread and juice and salsa and all the other things, cheese. So yeah, okay. You guys are probably feeling inflation. You see it spiked up. It is looking like it's trending back down, or at least projected here. So the orange line is the CPI, includes energy and food. The core CPI excludes energy and food. So it's showing that it spiked up to around 6%, 5.7 for the core CPI, 6.4 for the CPI. The target is 2. We're still not there. They're trending down, but I don't know in terms of when this data has been sourced, August 2023 from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So it's coming back down, but it still feels really rough, right? Are you feeling really rough in terms of inflation? Here's kind of where it is monthly. Here's people Google searching it over time. And it's like, yeah, whatever, inflation. What the heck is going on with inflation? That's what people, but in that, you even see that it's coming back down. So you can tell, it's getting less serious, but like it's been such a shock to the system. Everything is so much more. Here's some items that are falling with prices. I thought this was really interesting. I'm curious if this checks out with you guys. Health insurance is dropping. The prices are falling with inflation, 25%. Public transportation, car and truck rentals, 12%. Computers and smartphones are down. Used cars and trucks are starting to come down. Video and audio products, furniture and bedding, footwear. And then here's where the fastest rising prices are being felt. So your motor vehicle insurance at 17%. Motor vehicle maintenance and repair. I took my van in to get an oil change. I've got 2 vans, 2 Cincinnatios. And there was something clunking underneath my wife's white 2012 Honda Odyssey. I took it into the Odyssey dealer in Florence, Kentucky. I'm not going to name names. It's the Odyssey dealer in Florence, Kentucky, the Honda dealer. And they came back and called me a few hours later. And he started rattling off the things that were wrong and needed to be fixed. Mind you, I went in there for an oil change, and tell me what the clunky noise is. He came back with a list of about 8 things and said it'll cost you $7,800 to do these things. I'm like, that's another car. So I don't know. That was crazy. Then I talked to my dad. It's really nice to have dads. Really, really nice to have dads who know what they're doing. And he's like, yeah, no. But they did tell me one part that I wanted to get fixed. I asked them to fix it, and they said, we're actually out of that part. I'm like, you're the Honda dealership. What the heck? You're out of that part. So I bought the part on Amazon for $37, and I took it to my local amazing mechanic down the street who's very cheap, not the best communicator, but very cheap. And he put it on there for $80. So $7,800 on $80. Motor vehicle insurance is 17%. Motor vehicle maintenance and repair. So these are the fastest rising prices. Leased cars and trucks, pet services, pet and pet products, rent of shelter, still up 8%. Domestic services, housekeeping, personal care. Okay. So what does that mean from a real estate standpoint? I don't know why we have the Canadian chart on here, but essentially sales are down 10% of the year. Inventory is up 3%. I don't know why we're looking at Canada's market. This is what I want to get into with you guys. Home sales annual are down. The home sales annual are down. This is the total annual single family home sales in the millions. So this isn't pricing. This is the amount of units that have been sold. So you can see this chart in the 90s went up, 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 and then we hit the Great Recession. So this is, we're going to look at this time period a lot, or I want to focus on this 07, 05, 06, 07 time period heading into that recession. So then the same thing kind of went up, up, up. We hit COVID, and it actually went higher, which was crazy because more people wanted houses. But since then, we've been coming back down. So we've kind of hit a point this year where people are like, yeah, that's too much. Too much. It's too expensive. Rates went up. So home sales are actually down this year. Also, inventory is really low, and we're going to talk about that. So that's home sales monthly. It's coming out to about the same thing. It's basically saying we're down roughly 20 to 25% on home sales for the year. Now, here's the catch. Home prices are up. Well, maybe slightly down on the year. Here locally, they're still up. So this is a national chart. This is showing the long-term trend of home prices annually. That's the green line slanting up and to the right. The annual median home price is the, what is that, blue, purplish bar chart there, which has gone up, 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 up. We hit the recession, the Great Recession in 07, and they came down in 08, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then about recovered in 13. So it took about 5 years to recover. And then home prices went up very steadily from 13 to 2019. And then they took giant leaps in 20, 21, and 22. So this is saying that the home price, again, going back to, is a recession probable or not? The home price, median home price was 21% above the trend in 06, 07. Right now, it is 7% above the trend. And there's a difference here that we're going to get into, and that is inventory. So here we've been talking about inventory on this channel for a long time. And inventory is low. This is month supply of inventory in 2023. It kind of hit its lowest down last year in January and February. That was where we hit our lowest month supply of inventory, but we're still very, 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 very low of inventory. So it's very hard on buyers. It's hard to buy a house. There's not a lot of inventory out there, and prices keep going up. Prices up, inventory low, GDP is not really cranking. Recession is probable. Okay. That's the summary so far of where we're at. And new home starts. So what about new construction? Okay. That's what this chart is showing. New home starts. And this is important contextually, historically as well, because where we're at right now is projected to, we kind of hit our peak in 2021 because there was so much demand, and builder confidence finally went enough where they're like, we can just build whatever and they'll buy it. Then rates went up in 2022 and people started like, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit for that new house. And so builder sentiment came down a little bit, and it's down a little bit more in 2023 in terms of new home starts. But this is a key piece of the picture in terms of understanding where we're at with a probable recession and what does that mean for housing. Because if you guys remember, maybe you're too young, maybe you're older than me, I don't know. But let's go back to 07, 05, 06, 07. Look at all these houses that were being built in 05, in 06, and then we started to hit the recession in 07. But you had a massive amount of new home starts. And if you went back before 05, you would see that trend going up, 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 because they could sell them. Everyone was buying a house. Anyone could get a loan, right? If you could breathe, you could get a loan. You didn't need to put a lot of money down. And so when the recession hit, and a lot of that was because of the housing, these loans and the subprime and all that, But when the recession hit and people lost their jobs, they didn't have any equity in the house. So you had all these foreclosures. So boom, instantly, right? You had a ton of supply on the market because builders had been building up. Then you had a ton of foreclosures. So all those homes are on the market. So you've got all this supply and little demand because you're in the middle of a recession. And so after that, what happened from 2008 all the way to 2020, this green line is the long-term average. So that's the amount of houses you need to build in order to meet the demand. Okay. Or maybe this line, but this is the long-term average. But for basically a dozen years after the recession, because builders got crushed, a lot of builders lost their business in the recession. And the ones that remained were like, their risk tolerance went way down. And so they were very conservative with what they built. And so there wasn't a lot of inventory. There wasn't a lot of housing being built. And for a dozen years, it was under the long-term average that we need. So why is there not a lot of inventory right now? Look back over the last dozen years from 08 to 20, and there wasn't enough new construction. And now you've got all these millennials right now wanting to buy a house. And they're like, where are the houses? There's no houses. And they're super expensive. And investors are buying them all up and renting them out. And the American dream is getting like crushed. And I feel that. And so again, I'm trying to give context to what happened in the past so you guys can understand what's happening now. Because is a recession probable? Yes. But where are we at from an inventory standpoint? Where are we at from a pricing standpoint? That definitely matters into what's going to happen, even if we go into a recession from a housing pricing standpoint, inventory standpoint, and all that. So this is very important. New home starts were down for a dozen years. They finally came back up. And then when the rates hit at the end of summer, fall last year, when the rates really spiked, builders went down a little bit. So I'm curious where this will go next year again and see what happens from a recession standpoint. Okay. Again, guys, if you're watching, thank you for watching. Please click the like button if this is helpful for you. I'm trying to give you good knowledge, good expertise here, and subscribe to the channel. Be a part of the Stanio Clanio. And leave a comment if you guys want any questions answers. All right. New home sales and builder confidence. So this is kind of what I just said. They went up, then they came down when the rates, and their builder confidence went way down when the interest rates went up, because builders are like, oh crap, it's happening again. No one's going to buy. And, but what's happened since then is the rates have kind of gotten normalized by buyers. They're like, yeah, it sucks. It's more expensive, but I still need a house. So you can see here that builder sentiment went way down, but now it's kind of back up. And that's why we're seeing projected home sales back up again for 2023. Okay, mortgage rates. This is a great chart. It's very important. And I've talked about this chart a lot. Certainly when the rates spiked in 2022 right here. So you guys can see rates were down around 3.5%, 3.5%, and then bam, went way up, and then bam, went up again. But if you look at this chart historically, they're about average, right? So the historical average from 1972, so that includes a lot of inflation in the late 70s and the recession, and 16.63. Let's just put that into context for a minute. I know rates suck right now, and I know they're not 3%, but they're not 16.63%, right? They're right around 6.6 right now, something like that. They're fluctuating a little bit, but 16.63%. Can you imagine? Oh, those were rough times. Whoops. I want to go back to that. I want this. Okay. Make me small. I want you guys to see this. So 7.81 was historical average when you include the early 80s. If you just go from 1990 and that recession, then long term, so the last 30 years, rates average around 6%. So we're at around 6.6 right now. We're about average. And I think that's why people, everyone got mad, and rightfully so, when the rates went up. They're like, because we were experiencing, this is the oddball, right? This is the weird 20 and 21. Those rates you had not seen in 50 years and likely won't see again. But that was the weird time, right? But that plays a factor into what's going on next, because here's mortgage rates. They've gone up. They're kind of like leveling off, at least right now. They could continue to go up. They could go down. But right now we're roughly average, right? And so if you're playing the rate game, I guess what I want to show you in this is like when I talk to people and they're like, well, I don't want to buy a house right now because interest rates are high. And I'm going to wait until I can. Like, if you're trying to time interest rates, good luck. Like, I mean, I understand it stinks to pay a high interest rate, but they could go higher. And if they go lower, you could refinance if the economics make sense. I just feel like it's how do you know what's going to happen to them? Like I don't know. I think there are better reasons to buy a house than to wait for the perfect time to time the interest rate, and I think that's kind of a fool's game anyway to try to time anything in the market like that. It's just my opinion. I could be wrong. You could shoot the messenger, but that's what I think. Now, here's where I think you have a right to push back and be like, Eric, I'm not buying a house right now. It's crazy. Is this affordability index? And someone actually made a comment on my YouTube channel about this, and they're right. Like the affordability, you're getting crunched because inventory is low, prices are high, rates have gone up. Again, as we just saw, they're historically average for the last 30 years. They're even lower than average for the last 50 years. But I understand that inflation, higher rates, higher home prices, and it is really hard to afford to buy a house right now. I get that. It's especially if you're a first-time home buyer, right? If you're a first-time home. Now, if you have equity in your home, that's a different story. And we've got probably different videos to talk to you about that. Because if you've owned a home for the last 3, 5, 10, 15 years, then you've got some cards to play. If you haven't owned a home and you didn't get to see any of this, major appreciation that happened. I mean, look at these home prices going up, guys. Like if you bought your home, I bought my first home, in 2007. And I was like, dang it. Because home prices went bing, bing, bing. They went down the next 3 years. You know what I did? I lived in that house for a few years. I rented it out for 9 years and I sold it in 2020. I did all right because you have options when you own a home. So I understand that prices are high, but if you were waiting 2 years ago for the last 3 years to buy a house because interest rates are high, and you were like, well, I don't want to buy a house, interest rates are high. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, you just lost out on 30% appreciation on the house. If you would have bought a $300,000 house, you would have had 90 grand of appreciation, but interest rates were too high. Okay, I'm not going to try to punish you guys anymore, but like, I just think you got to take interest rates with kind of a grain of salt if you're wanting to buy a house, right? And I understand that affordability stinks right now. But again, historical average 27%. Right now it's about 29%. But you're getting squeezed. I get it. Inflation's hard. Interest rates are hard. And I do think going back to our question of is a recession probable? We saw recessions right here in the early 80s. We saw a recession in 1990 where the affordability index was high. We saw a recession in 2007 where the affordability index peaked above the average. And look where it's at right now. It is definitely heading above the average. And so is that recession probable? Yeah, I would say yes. But what does that mean from inventory and pricing and all that other stuff? We got to put this piece together. And this is just the economics of it, guys. It's not, if you need to buy or sell a house because of your family, because of your job, because you're like whatever, then all this stuff is kind of like whatever. I just have to do it. But if I guess a lot of the economics, I'm just trying to give you guys context for where the market is. And if you've been sitting out, it's like, or if you're, if you're holding your house and not selling it because you got all that equity into it. We'll talk about that. So let's get into this, the mortgage universe. This is really interesting. Really, really, really interesting. So 89% of mortgages have rates of 5% or less. Okay. Where are we at on rates right now? We are at around 6.6. Okay. They've gone up. They spiked at the end of 22. But right now, of those people who have mortgages, 89% of them have a rate locked in of 5% or less. So 3% or a rate of 3% or less, 32% of people have 3 to 3.5, and put me in that. I refinanced in 2020 for a 15-year loan and got 3 or less. So I'm very happy and never want to move, but I get it. 3 to 3.5% has 27. So you add up everything that's under 5 and you get 89%. Okay. So that's where the mortgage universe is right now. This chart coming up here, and granted, this is for realtors, so you guys are kind of getting the inside game here. And so if you start hearing pitches from realtors about this, you can blame Gary Keller, I guess, and me. But I still think, just to give you guys context for what's happening in the market, this slide, this next information kind of blew me away. So 87, there's 87 million homeowners. And this chart is going to show homeowner equity. All right. So here we go. Homeowner equity. 39% of the 87 million homeowners in America own their home outright. So who is that? It's probably a lot of boomers, right? A lot of boomers who have paid off their house. 34 million people, they own their house outright. Now, of the remaining 61%, that's 53 million people with mortgages. Check out this next slide. 31% of that remaining 61 has equity over 50% in their house. Just want this to let this sink in for a minute. So there's only 30% of people with less than 50% equity in their house right now. Okay. So here's a giant stat. 70% of homeowners have at least 50% equity in their homes. That is crazy. Where does that go back to? Home prices doing this, right? If you bought a home and you held on to it, particularly, since, 08, 09, for the last 14 years or so, or beyond, because a lot of those people are probably boomers who have it paid off. You have a lot of equity in your house. 70% of homeowners have at least 50% equity in their homes. Okay. So I'm going to land the plane here in a few minutes. And if you guys have questions, feel free to get them in. But here's the thing I wanted to kind of talk about with this. Let me get a little bigger so I can look you guys in the eyes a little bit. Is a recession probable? Likely, yes. We have more jobs than we have people who want to work or are qualified to work. I don't know exactly why we have more jobs than that, but we have more jobs than we have people unemployed. We have home prices that have continued to go up. Nationally, they've come down a little bit. Here locally in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, they've continued to go up. Not as much as last year, but they've continued to go up. Interest rates have gone up, but they are historically average, 6.5%. That's where about the average has been the last 30 to 50 years. We have very little inventory on the market. Builders underbuilt for a dozen years. Most homeowners are locked in under 5%. What did I say? 89. I think it was 89%. 89% of people have rates of 5% or less. So you guys tell me, where's the inventory going to come from? RMAC Tactical said he got in the high 2% for their home there in Oregon. Do you guys want to sell? I'm in at 2%, and I'm like, but here's the weird thing. I kind of want a different house, but I'm like, I don't want to give up the 2%. So if I'm a realtor who knows all these things, thinking that, how many other people are thinking the same thing? How many of these people who own the home outright, or own the home, or own at least 50% equity in their house? Yeah, he said, nope. Our Max said, nope, 2%, I'm good. How many of them want to, sell their home. And let's take it one step further. Think about this for a minute. Even if there is a recession, if we go back to that 07, 08, you had a lot of people who got houses that didn't have a lot of equity in the house, who lost their jobs, who got foreclosed on. If we have a recession right now and people lose their jobs, first of all, we have more jobs than people unemployed. So you can get a job by like millions. Second of all, you've got 70% of people who have 50% or more equity in their house. So you can just cash out on the equity. So where is the inventory going to come from? You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there's 30% of people who, if they lost their job, that might, might be really hard for them to hold on to their house. If that recession comes, and I'm not trying to speak lightly of this. That would be tragic, obviously, if that happened. If we have a recession, people lose their jobs. I'm just trying to let you guys think through this from an economic standpoint of what's going to happen, even if we do have a recession, right? Even if home prices do come down, and in the Great Recession, they came down for a few years, and it took 5 years for them to rebound. So where's the inventory going to come from? Because most people can do a HELOC, can cash out some of the equity on their house to cover them for a bit. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? So, yep, Alex said, great info. I'm staying put with my 2.875% loan until 3 CDC in the city build out the convention center. Yeah, totally. And that's what a lot of people are doing, right? And so if you're in the market to try to buy a house, like, where's it going to come from? And that's why I keep bringing up kind of new construction on this channel, because I think that's a good spot. Even though it feels expensive today, where we're at from an inventory standpoint, the people who want houses, prices are still going up. So, and Alex is saying the same thing. Now, I want to show you guys something. Looks like we got a little time. I'm going to go into this because I think this is really interesting. And again, this is coming from Gary Keller's Mega Camp. And I want to show you guys some numbers here. So 70% of homeowners have at least 50% equity in their homes. So this is called the dream car versus the dream home scenario. I find this really interesting because this scenario is very similar to my life. But it says this. Okay, here's a scenario. Mr. Joe bought a home for $200,000 in 2014, 20% down at a 4% rate. And Joe owns a truck that he bought in 2015. His mortgage payment is $1,597 a month, and his truck's paid off, right? Because he had a truck payment for, let's say, 6 years, 7 years. That's paid off, and he pays $1,600 a month for the home. Now, scenario A, we're going to go through a few scenarios here. You could do a budget home, and you could get your dream car. So you could keep living in your current home that you bought in 2014, and you can buy your dream car, $100,000. And I don't know much about cars, so I that sounds like a lot to me, but maybe it's an all decked out let's call it a 2023 Jeep Grand Wagoneer, and you put down $10K on that, you finance $90K of it. Auto finance is higher than homes at 8% for 5 years. So what that looks like is your car payment is $1,824. Your mortgage payment is still $1,600. You get to deduct $100 of your mortgage interest, and your total debt on the month is $3,300, $3,322. Okay, that's scenario one. Keep your home, even though you got a few more kids and you're getting a little cramped, right? You're going to stay in your home that you bought 9 years ago, but you're going to get your dream car. Okay, that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is you buy your dream home, but you keep your budget car. So same guys before. Joe's got that $1,600 a month mortgage payment, but he decides to keep his truck, do a little bit more maintenance on it. He's got a good mechanic down the street. He's going to keep the truck that's paid off, and he's going to sell his home that he bought in 2014 for $200K, and it's now worth $400,000. You guys can do the math on this. 9 years, that's not a stretch. of in terms of what we had from appreciation over the last 9 years. And with that $400,000 sale of his home that he bought in 2014, he has $272,000 of equity because he paid down that 200 down a little bit to what, 128, something like that. So he if I'm doing my math right, but I'm sure this slide is right. So he had 272 of equity, and he puts all of that towards his dream house. He's like, you know what? We're getting a bigger house, whether it's new construction or a resale home. We're going to, yes, houses are expensive right now, but we've got all this equity. So we're going to cash in the equity. We're going to push that in. I'm going to keep my old truck that's paid off, and I'm going to buy this $650,000 house. What does that look like? Car payment, doesn't have one because he kept the old truck. This is the budget car scenario. His new mortgage payment at today's rates, the 6.6%, thereabouts, is $38.69. But a lot of that, he's going to have that mortgage interest deduction of $490 a month. So his net total debt payment is $33.79. You guys following me with this? Dream home, budget car, $33.79. Let's go back one slide. Budget home, but the dream car is $33.22. So it's $50 difference a month for the dream home versus the dream car because you get that mortgage interest deduction on your taxes. Interesting, right? All right, let's bump that up. And I'll show you the answer to this. I'm going to bump this up. Well, it's not Joe. It's Joe's richer, more attractive older brother, Mike, which is my older brother's name. I'm not very creative. Mike. So Mike bought a $400,000 home in 2014 and the same truck he bought in 2015. And so this is the same idea, except just a little bit more expensive. Okay. So if he had bought that home in 2014 for $400K, and now he's going to keep that budget home. He's going to keep that home. He's going to buy the dream car, that same $100K 2023 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. He's going to buy that. The car payment's $1,800. The mortgage payment's $3,194 because he's keeping that budget home. It gets a little interest deduction, and it's $4,800 total. Okay, so one step up. We're not at $3,300. We're at $4,800 for auto and home. Okay, that's the budget home dream car scenario for Mike. Now the dream home and budget car scenario, he bought that house for $400K in 2014. It's now worth $800K. Okay, and now Mike wants to cash in the chips because when he sells that $800,000 house and the equity pay down he's had on his house for the 9 years, he now has $545,000 of equity to play with to put towards the new $1.1 million dream home. So yes, home prices have gone up, right? That dream home would have cost less 9 years ago. Today it costs 1.1. He's keeping his beater truck, but he's buying the $1.1 million house. It's got the pool. It's got the bar in the basement. It's got a 3-car garage. And his wife is so happy, right? So Mike's mortgage payment is now $5,100. He doesn't have a car payment. He gets the mortgage interest deduction of $650. Total debt, $4,460. Let's go back. Budget home and dream car for Mike, it's actually $4,800. But if he sells the house and keeps the beater car, but buys a dream home for 1.1, it's actually a less expensive overall monthly debt. So very interesting, right? Now, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get you guys to sell your house and buy a new house? Yes. I'm a real estate agent. No, I'm not trying to do that. But I think the math here is really interesting. And I think what I hear from a lot of people all the time is like interest rates, housing prices are too much. But what I'm trying to answer the question for you guys here is, where's the inventory going to come from? I think when it's not going to flood the market, but some people are going to figure this out, the math. And so I'm trying to get the message out there a little bit tonight of like, oh, I could cash in all the equity and you could do a lot of things with that equity, right? You don't have to buy the 1.1. Maybe you buy from the 400 to an 800 now, and you buy a boat, or like you take a few more trips, or you save more for retirement, or whatever that is. You can do a lot of things with that equity. But that's the advantage of owning a home and getting the equity over time, even if a recession is coming. So there's a closing slide here. Whether you get the budget home and the dream car, or the dream home and the budget car, the math says that for every $50,000 in car debt at today's rates, you're actually losing $200,000 in home purchasing power. So that's really interesting, right? If you're going for the dream car, you're losing a lot of your home purchasing power because the dream car's rates are higher. So, yeah, I love this idea from RMAC, or maybe you should invest into a rental property. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Acquire assets, people. That is something I am for. If you guys want to see a great video, let me see if I can put it in the chat real quick. It's a 1-minute video. And Pifio, how to get rich. My friends started this video business several years ago and made this video, and it's basically Rich Dad Poor Dad in 1 minute. But I'll put it in the chat for you guys. Yeah, but the video basically says, hey, you want to get rich? You do the same thing that poor people do, but instead of buying liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, you should buy assets, things that fancy rich people, right? Say, so assets, businesses, precious metals, real estate, stocks, mutual funds. Those are all good things. So yeah, I can't wait for you guys to close either. So some of our loyal followers here reached out from the channel, and we helped them buy their first rental property here in Cincinnati, and we are closing this week. So super awesome. Excited for that. Yes, assets are good. I would love for you guys to all acquire more and more assets and wealth and influence. It's a good thing. So here, but this is the final slide I want to show you guys in terms of the budget home and the dream car or dream home and budget car. And just going back again, I just think it's really fast. This stat just shocked me that 70% of people have at least 50% equity in their homes. And so when you combine that with 89% of mortgages have rates, it's like, oh, okay. Yep. And that's what we've been feeling as realtors in the market, is like people don't want to sell because they're locked in. They've got this low rate. And so that may stay the same. That might not change. People might just stay there and be like, well, this is my house. I'm going to pay it off. And, I don't need the budget home, or I don't need the dream home or the dream car. I'm going to be content. But this could be where some of the inventory comes from. In addition, will builders continue to build? I would say that's where we need to see more as well. Will that builder sentiment stay high? Because the demand is there and the inventory is not. And I understand. So let's put a bow on this thing. But yeah, Armac said, these last few slides are making my wheels turn in my head right now. Thanks for this. Yeah, this is one reason I love working with Keller Williams, is because they equip us with this kind of training and these kind of stats on the market every year, so we kind of understand what's going on. And I'm not a professional economist again, but it is kind of our job to understand what's happening in the real estate world. And I hope that this is helpful for you guys, so you can understand what's happening. Rates are up, but they're about average. Okay, home prices have gone up. They're going down in some cities. They're going up in others still. But they have kind of leveled off a little bit this year from the last few years. Inventory is low. We need builders to build more. And people have a crap ton of equity in their houses and are locked in at low rates. So that's where we are at. That's where we are at. So what I would love to see is, again, I want to go back to this slide, because if a recession is probable, I hear what a lot of people are saying. They're like, rates are high and the house price could go down. And my answer is yes. It absolutely could go down. And like I said, I bought my house right here. My first house that I ever bought was right here. And I was 20, I don't know. I was like 26 years old. And my dad, yeah, bought a first house, was doing Young Life Ministry. And we were house hacking even then. We had roommates who helped us pay down the mortgage, which was great. You can do a lot of things once you get control of a property. But I bought it there and I was like, well, shoot. But I didn't sell it in 08 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 13, right? I held it. We lived in it till 11. Then I rented it for the next 10 years and I sold it in 20 after flipping it and after making rental income on it for 10 years. So there's a lot of things you can do when you own the asset, right? And so I guess my point in all this is I understand that affordability is tough right now, but controlling assets is a good thing. And the likelihood of this long-term trend of housing prices going up is good. Now, where I would say, as a real estate professional, where I would maybe caution you where we're at right now from a recession probability standpoint is if your housing horizon is short-term, meaning 1 to 3 years, something like that, then I would say, whoa, okay. If you're thinking of just coming here for a year and then moving again, then and the likelihood could be that housing prices do go down. I think overall, Cincinnati has been fairly resilient. And overall, Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, and actually I want to get to those stats real quick, is a very resilient city. Cincinnati tends to not see a ton of appreciation in hot markets. And we also don't tend to see a lot of depreciation during recessions. It's a very stable city. So back in the 08 recession where you saw, Jacksonville and Phoenix and like Vegas got crushed, right? These different cities that went boom and they were like took off. And then when the recession hit, they crashed down. Cincinnati's like a Midwest river city that is very stable, which makes it a great rental location, So, okay, I want to jump out of this real quick. I'm not going to hit too many other notes on the night. Again, if you guys have questions, hit them in here before we leave. Let me stop this, present one other thing. Give me 1 second here. Window. Okay. Here, and let's do this. Okay. So this is, I want to pull this locally a little bit. This is the Northern Kentucky MLS because the Cincinnati MLS is still down. If you guys caught our video last week, we got cyber attacked. We are transitioning to a new system. They're rolling that out this week. Hopefully it's up and going within these first few days. But if you guys are on our list or our MLS portal and you're like, I don't see any new houses, it's because our MLS got hacked. But this is the Northern Kentucky MLS and it did not get hacked. So I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this is showing kind of the same story. The number of listings, this is in Northern Kentucky, amount of active listings. And this is kind of a seasonal, what we see usually dips down in this December, usually hits its lowest in January, February, March, and then starts picking up April, May, June. This is listing prices. So this is what we see. And Northern Kentucky's prices generally track very similarly with Cincinnati. So this data is going to be roughly the same. So the active median price in Northern Kentucky right now is $389,000. The new median list price is $309,000. The sold median is $284,000. So sold is $284,000 right now. Back in April of 22, that number was $250,000. So again, prices going down. The list price was $359,000 in April of 22, and it's $389,000 now. So it's not quite up 10% this year. It's more like 4 to 5%. If you look at year over year, let me look at July. It was 352. Actually, that is closer. I'm sorry, that's January. That's hard to see on this chart. Sorry. Okay. I won't bore you guys with it. The point is, prices have still gone up here in Northern Kentucky. Price volume has still gone up. Days on market hit its highest point. I say this to people a lot. that if you're looking to buy, like let's say you missed the spring summer market, but buying in August, from August through January, February, I kind of like. Inventory goes down, but also does the amount of buyers that are out there in the competition. And so days on market tends to go up through the fall and into the winter. And when days on market goes up, sellers get nervous. They don't, especially when it's still a seller's market, which it is. And if their house has been sitting out there for 10, 15, 20, 30 days, that's when you can come in with the only offer on the table and possibly get some terms in your favor, as opposed to the exact opposite that it's been for several years as a seller's market. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. So that's where we're at Northern Kentucky wise. Just see if I missed any other comments here. I don't think so. Just a few other headlines. This basically says exactly what I talked about for the last hour. We need more houses on the market, local realtor groups say. Yeah, I know. You should watch my YouTube live, and then you can make an article out of it. Here's, I don't know, just for fun, some of the, what is this? These are the most expensive houses that were sold in July. So this is, I think I did this a few shows ago, but Indian Hill 1.6, Indian Hill 1.6, Indian Hill 1.6, Marymount, hey, 1.6. East End 1.6. This is actually right around the corner from me on Walworth Avenue. Covington, this up here, what's the name of this neighborhood? I went up there and shot a video. It's got some killer views of downtown. 1.8 on Bella Vista Drive. East Walnut Hills, 2 million. This says Vista Hills, but that was a typo. That should be Villa Hills, 2.25 million. Susan Huff did that one. Squire Oaks, you got the nice 4-car exterior garage, pool. I can handle that. I can handle that house. It'd be all right for my family. Out in Green Township on Work Road. So this is, Green Township, 2.5 million. And then Indian Hill coming in number 1 in July, 3.5 million, Julie back. So those are some of the houses that sold for a lot. Guru status, Devin. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. His whole team. We do our best, and we're growing, which I'm excited about. We're getting close to adding a few other agents on the team, or at least one, maybe more. So I'm super excited about that. So we can help more and more people buy and sell houses. Appreciate that, Devin. Downtown Cincinnati. I'm not going to go through this whole article because we're closing in on an hour. Is downtown Cincinnati safe? The answer is basically yes, and the crime is basically within pockets of the same people, unfortunately. It's a very, I don't know if you guys can see this yet. Relative to a large number of people who spend their time downtown, the count of crimes that happen is really, really low. It's a very small number of our population that are offending. Violent crime. There's been a massive spike of teen shootings this year. A lot of that is not happening downtown. I heard that in the That's So Cincinnati podcast. Mayor Aftab Puraval was talking about that, and just how it's sad, man, that where, arguments used to be like, meet me at the playground at 3:00 and you'd fight. Now kids have guns, and so you see more shootings. It's really, really sad. There can be large groups of youth downtown, but that's not necessarily crime. But crime data in downtown Cincinnati mirrors other U.S. cities. While crime increased across American cities over the course of the pandemic from 19 to 22, the nonpartisan Brookings Institute found that the spike in crime committed in America's downtowns was relatively small compared to the citywide rates. In Chicago, there was a 48% increase in property crime and a 5% increase in violent crime. Downtown Chicago just saw 6% and 1% spikes. In the Queen City, violent crime incidents are at their lowest levels in a decade. And I did a video on that showed that they're at their lowest rates in over 10 years, which is great. For most people, there have been times when they come downtown and nothing has happened to them. And I'll guarantee that the crimes we're seeing recorded downtown are the things that the entire country is dealing with. It's not just Cincinnati. The busiest spots of downtown are monitored. So yeah, you guys can read the rest of that article. The other one, what did I want? We had the Western and Southern. and Coco Golf won, and congratulations to her. I'm really hoping this is not the last Western and Southern event here, but it's possible that it could move to South Carolina. But this is such a beautiful venue right across the street from Kings Island up in Mason, and the best in the world come. Novak Djokovic is here. I'm actually been out of my tennis game for a little bit. Alexander Zverev, if I'm saying that right. Looks like they played in the semifinals. But such a cool event, and I hope it stays here. It'd be a big blow to the city if we lose that one. So, did you guys get a chance to watch any of that this week? All right, I am bouncing, guys. I hope the economics lesson was helpful for you. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That really helps us push it out to more people. I'm hoping these lives, we're over 2 months in on these now. So I really like doing these. I hope you guys like doing them too. It's a good chance for me to interact with you and help you understand what's going on in the market. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great night, and we'll see you next time. And the Bengals, September 10th, we're getting close.